We got a good long segment here with our guest, General Jack Keane, 4-star general, former acting chief of staff and vice chief of staff of the Army, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, national security analyst for Fox News. Coming from Brooklyn and being a big guy myself, I refer to him as the big, good-looking guy without an accent. How are you, General?
Good morning, Bill. It's good to talk to you.
Where did you grow up? I got to ask you.
I grew up in Manhattan in a couple of city housing projects, one on the Lower East Side on 10th Street and Avenue B, and the other one in the Inwood section of Manhattan.
Sure. I grew up in Flatbush, Bedford and Parkside Avenue. I'm sure you know the area. And,
we do.
Yeah. Great to have you on, and we always enjoy listening to you and learn from you, sir. Thanks for your service, and thanks for being a source of information and insight for us. Congratulations on the Bradley Prize. Bradley Foundation awards its prizes in June at the Kennedy Center. You will be a recipient. That's a big deal. Congratulations, General.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. You're kind to say so. An honor body award, to be sure.
Yeah, it's I knew the Bradley folks for a long time. That's a terrific thing to have you get it. Let's go to work. I got a series of questions I wanted to ask you. We start with the headlines. Ashton Carter, the Secretary of Defense, says this Iraqi Army doesn't want to fight. Is that true? They don't want to fight?
Well, there's no doubt the Iraqi Army's got problems. I mean, we've all seen it on television, and that's a reflection of, poor leadership, poor training, lack of discipline, and obviously morale itself. Maliki emasculated this army after we left in 2011. We had a disciplined, fairly well-trained army that fought with distinction during the surge in 2007 and 2008. I was there many times. I saw it up close myself. Then Maliki put his cronies and hacks in it. They ripped off the money that was supposed to go to training. So there, for the next 3 years, we had a poorly led and ill-trained army. And that's what we've seen on the battlefield in Fallujah, and certainly in Mosul in June, and now in Ramadi. But it's not the whole story, Bill. The fact is the Army has been fighting in and around Ramadi for almost 14 months. And you got to give ISIS some credit here. They overmatched them, and they tactically surprised them at Ramadi. They got behind them, and they also came in with a phalanx of car bombs, some of which have been reported as big as the Oklahoma bombing in Oklahoma City. And they broke down their initial defense forces, which were some of their best forces that have been fighting very hard. Their commandos and also some special police paramilitary forces. But no doubt they did penetrate them. But also some credit is due to ISIS here. I would not have made that statement if I was Secretary Carter. I don't believe anybody from Iran is going to make a statement like that. Yeah. They're going to come in and say, hey, how can I help you?
Yeah, okay, got it. They weren't outnumbered, though, right? They were not outnumbered, the Iraqi Army, correct? They were maybe outfoxed, but not outnumbered. That's at least the reports I've read.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
Okay. All right, so then the other side, the other story we're playing this morning, we're playing Representative Tulsi Gabbards' comments, Democrat Congresswoman from Hawaii, saying here these people want to fight. Peshmerga, Kurds, some of the Sunnis in the villages, they're not getting the stuff because if we're sending it, or I'm not sure we are sending it, it's not getting through the Iraqi government to get to the people who want to fight. So you do have people who want to fight, and they're not getting the equipment. Fair enough?
Yeah, the Congresswoman usually is on the mark, and she's on the mark here. Yeah. The truth is, this is, as you know, and I think our audience is aware also, Anbar province and Ramadi, its provincial capital, that's the heartland of the Sunnis. And certainly what we've been trying to do is train up the Sunni tribal force so that they can fight ISIS. Some of them have fought with ISIS, but most of them will fight against ISIS as they have done in the past against the Al-Qaeda, who were the predecessors to ISIS. The problem is putting together this force, which we said we were going to do 9 months ago, is almost non-existent. There's not enough training, and there's not enough weapons and ammunition for the force. Peshmerga skilled, they have will, they have numbers, but they've been hollering at us for 9 months to get us the weapons we need. Still not there.
Is that us not sending it, or is the Iraqi government blocking it?
It's two.
Both?
It's twofold. We've got to blame because of a lack of sense of urgency and volume, and the Iraqi government insisting that everything has to come through them.
Okay. Every time we get to this point in the discussion, I say, okay, so, if we're not going to, I say, let's put boots on the ground. We say, no, you don't need all these boots on the ground. You just need to arm the people who already want to fight. What do we do with these options? I mean, you got this ridiculous government, which is, gutted the Army. I heard you say yesterday is put in a bunch of, buddy system, right? But we're not getting the supplies to them. What do we do? How do we defeat ISIS? Do we have to put our own guys in there?
As combat forces, no, not yet. I mean, first of all, we need an appropriate strategy. We have no strategy to defeat ISIS in Syria, which is their headquarters, this is their base, this is where they recruit, this is where they train, this is where they conduct logistics operations, operations in Syria and Iraq. No plan to do that, which means we can't defeat ISIS. It's from there that they're expanding to Yemen, Afghanistan, the Sinai, and Libya. So that's part one. Part two is, what do we do about Iraq? And I think you put your finger on it. The problem is we had a weak hand in Iraq on the ground, most notably the Iraqi Army. We're trying to retrain some of that. But everything we're doing, the way I describe it, is just not enough. Not enough weapons to the Kurds, not enough trainers and weapons to the Sunni Travel Force, not retraining enough Iraqi forces, not putting advisors on the ground with the fighting forces, what the president refuses to do. They're sitting in our bases. No forward air controllers to make air power effective. 75% of the air sorties, which represents one airplane, one mission, 75% of the air sorties that have flown return to base with unexpended ordnance because they cannot acquire the target or they cannot properly identify it because there's a lack of people on the ground. The combat is close combat, Bill, in urban centers. That's where the combat is. You need people to guide those bombs, and the pilots just can't indiscriminately drop those bombs. Okay.
All right. So we need more boots on the ground to help guide, men in front, men in behind, not a large combat force, at least not yet.
Right.
The usual...
Well, it would probably triple the number of people we have, a number, I think, which is probably... unacceptable to the president. It's
10,
probably a number around about 10,000, remarkably similar to what the minimum force requirements were in 2011.
Yeah, amazing. A lot of people, when they hear this, and they hear about the Iraqi Army, and they hear about the advance of ISIS, move to, not to your recommendation, but to a council of despair. Well, hell, just let them solve their own problems. Let's get out of there. Not 10,000 people, but get rid of the 3 that are there. What does it matter to us?
Yeah. We're not in Iraq just because of the Iraqis and in our affinity to them as a result of war from when we actually stopped fighting in 2009. We're there because of our national interest. We're there because a destabilized Iraq means Iran is dominating another country and ISIS is slaughtering people and establishing a base in that country itself. We should not let either one of those things happen. This is our national interest in terms of stability in the region.
Okay, and obviously, I mean, the notion that we fight them there so we don't have to fight them here, they're sending messages, and some of those messages are in blood over here. Say more about Syria. What do we do in Syria? I saw you again yesterday saying we got to get over there, and as you just mentioned, that's the control center and the nerve center. What do we do in Syria? What do we need to do in Syria? Same thing, 10,000 men? What kind of things do we need to do?
Now, Syria is hard, and it's hard because there's a civil war going on there between Assad and the opposition forces. But I think we have to take the counsel of our allies in the region, and those are the ones that border Syria. This is obviously Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, etc. What they tell us is, look, we're not going to go against ISIS until we deal with Assad. We have to do solution there is on the favor of the opposition forces. Our allies tell us, and I agree with them, we should establish no-fly ships against him. A lot of the Alawites and other followers that he has, that support has been eroding. It's not ready to collapse right now, but it has been eroding gradually. And at least they believe there's an opportunity here for a political solution if we change the military momentum in the country simply by doing what I had suggested. If that's the case, then they will if we get a political solution there, then they will provide ground forces. They'll likely ask us to participate with them to go against ISIS in Syria. That would be a modest contribution I think we would make. They may also ask us, would we lead it? And I think we should. And that's something that's feasible. It's complicated to get there where we're just status quo. It's complicated to get there where we're just status quo, letting ISIS grow in Syria. The killing goes on in Syria in terms of the humanitarian crisis. ISIS expands because we're not going after it. And
we're talking to General Jack Keane. We just have a minute or two left. You were one of the architects of the surge, successful. Here's an architect. Here's a plan. What's your confidence that this plan would be picked up by this Defense Department and this administration?
I have no confidence whatsoever. I think the president has made up his mind to do the best he can to contain ISIS. He's obviously not doing it because it's expanding. It's expanding in Syria, it's expanding in Iraq, and it's expanding in the region as far as Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But his plan is that's not the rhetoric, but the actions are to contain it and pass it to the next president, who's going to have a heck of a problem on his hands.
Seems like the greatest version he has is just not to do anything that looks like what you...
I think you put your finger right on the problem from 2009 to the present. He's absolutely paralyzed by the fear of the adverse consequence of another ground war in the Middle East, regardless of the circumstances that drove Bennett. Is that because he's disengaging from the Middle East, he's actually advantage of our reticence, as is Russia, as is Iran.
Nature and our enemies abhor a vacuum. General Keane, we thank you. We thank you for your service. To your country, our country, and your continuing services again on the Bradley Prize. Well deserved.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.